Hey, it's Dave from Chaos Guitars. Welcome to another edition of Bench Talks. Today we're going to talk briefly about some common things we see on the bench and why your guitar may not be broken, but how it's trying to communicate to you. So we talk a lot about environment and how it affects your guitar. Your guitar may be harder to play. It may not feel the same as it did the day before. Your action may be a little bit different. There's all kinds of things that you'll notice from day to day if you play a lot. If you're a guy that plays multiple times a week or every day or whatever, if you play consistently and you have structure in the way that you play, you'll notice that your guitar doesn't always feel the same. That's the environment. And we talk about this all the time, and I know I'm beating a dead horse, but it really is important because understanding what your guitar is doing and why it's doing it. I used to when I was young, when I was a kid and just learning how to play, I remember getting so frustrated because I would sit in my room and I remember I would play along with Metallica albums. And one day it would sound great and I'd be on point and the sound would be on point. And then I couldn't wait to get home from school the next day to do this all over again. And I would get up there and I would spend the entire time fiddling with knobs and fiddling with pedals and fiddling with everything, trying to figure out why it didn't sound like it did the day before when it was perfect. Well, there's a million reasons why. I didn't know that then. I know that now, 30, 40 years later. So this is why I do these things. This is why this has become so important to me. And teaching this to people has become so important to me because I've wasted so much time tweaking things that didn't need to be tweaked when understanding it in the first place would have been so much easier. Your environment plays a big role on guitars, especially on acoustics, but whether it's an acoustic or an electric or a bass or a mandolin or a banjo or anything with strings, anything made out of wood. The environment plays a huge part on. That's why one day it feels one way, the next day it doesn't. One way it sounds one way, the next day it doesn't. Your action changes, your everything changes from day to day. So just keep that in mind. Doesn't mean it's broken, means it's communicating to you. It's telling you, well, the humidity today is a lot less than it was yesterday, or a lot more than it was yesterday. And you'll know that a lot of times you can tell that. If your guitar feels incredibly different one day, look out the window. What was the weather the day before? That may right there tell you. So you'll have that. You'll have changes in tone. And we talked about this in the other bench talk that we just did, that you'll have changes in tone in what you hear from your guitar. But you'll also have changes in what you hear from your amp, from your effects, from the room, from everything around you, because everything plays a part on this. Your pick, the pick you use affects your tone. Everything affects your tone. This is what makes me crazy when I tell somebody, you need a setup on this guitar. It's in desperate need of a setup. And I hear, yeah, but I really got to get this $1,500 piece of equipment for my tone. Well, your tone starts here. So keep that in mind. Then I hear so much about pickups, right? I can't tell you how many pickup changes I do. And it's fine. A lot of them, the majority of them, I will say, are because somebody wants a certain kind of pickup in their guitar. But over the years, I've noticed the go-to when there's a problem with what somebody hears is, I think my pickups are bad. I think my pickups aren't working. I can tell you in all the years of me doing this, I'm going to be 55 this year. I've done this pretty much my entire life. So all the years of me doing this, I have run into one pickup that was actually bad. And it was on a lawsuit Ibanez Les Paul. And it literally was bad. The winding was open. That was the only one I've ever run into. Now, there's some crappy pickups that just don't sound good, but they still work. So the chance of you having a bad pickup are slim to none. So again, your tone starts with your pick, your strings, your setup. Something in your setup may change. You may have changed a pick. You may have changed. There's a million things you could have changed before we even get to that pickup. So don't be so quick to blame your pickups. Tuning drift is another one. I hear a lot of complaints. I just had a complaint the other day from a customer that had an LTD, and he brought it in for a setup. And he said, I can't, the only other problem and complaint that I have is I can't seem to get it to stay in tune. So I said, all right, we'll look at it. And to me, I would say if I had a guess, most times it's a nut issue. Binding at the nut. This time it was the tuners. And it's rare for it to be a tuner issue, especially when it's the entire guitar not staying in tune. However, in this case, every single tuner was loose. And that would be common over time because things loosen up. Everything vibrates. Your strings vibrate. Vibration, as you can imagine, doesn't sit well with hardware because screws want to back themselves out when there's constant vibration. And that's probably what happened. So all the nuts on the tuners loosened a little bit. All the screws on the back loosened a little bit. We tightened everything up and it stayed in tune for me. So in that case, it absolutely was the tuners. Now, if you get one string that goes out, you have a tuner, like I've had tuners that are a little bit grindy or a little bit, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, gritty, that's a tuner. But I always look at my friction points first, where your strings rest, at your bridge, at your nut, wherever your strings run through and sit is a friction point. And that needs to be able to slide on that friction point. So if your string's binding in the nut, and you'll hear that sometimes when you tune, and all of a sudden you get that little, and you're like, what the heck was that? It's your string binding in the nut. Your nut's grabbing that string, and then every once in a while, you know how your strings have that, they're ridged. Every once in a while, it pulls through a ridge. That's your nut binding. Sometimes you'll hear it on a bridge. That's a little bit more rare. But you'll get, like on electrics, I had one of my own just the other day, one that I had just gotten, that I had brand new strings on. I got through, I think, 2 practices, and broke an E string at the bridge. And that's incredibly rare. So for me, especially on a brand new set of strings, so I looked, and sure enough, it had a burr on the saddle. So I had to file down the saddle. So you'll run into stuff like that. You always want to look at your friction points. That's a relatively common thing. That's something I always check when we do a setup, is I look at all the friction points on the guitar. It's pretty much the things to keep in mind. Your relationship with the guitar this is a weird one, and I think one that most people that do this don't take into account because it's a very mechanical, this is what it is, it's working fine. If you don't think it's working fine, then that's your problem type of thing. It's not, I don't look at it that way. And I think maybe because I've done this for so long and I own so many different guitars and I've been through every possible scenario for the most part with my own guitars to know that not every guitar fits every person. And you continue to hear me say this, and I often feel weird saying it because I'm not this kind of person that's kind of like, oh, well, it's in the universe for you. That's not me. So, but it is true that your guitar has to warm up to you. Your guitar has to be an extension of you. You pick it because, let's face it, you pick it because you look at something and go, I need that. I'm a heavy metal guy, so I like the pointy guitars, the Flying V's. I'm an 80s guy, right? The metal of the 80s and early 90s. So that was the Randy Rhoads V's and all that. I have more Randy Rhoads V's here than I know what to do with. I don't need that many, but I got a ton of them because that was the guitar that I was drawn to because of the way it looked. Now if I have 20 of them, I play maybe 15 of them, and I have 5 that are horrible. And I'm just throwing numbers out there, but I have 5 that are horrible, that I just don't like. There's nothing wrong with the guitar. The guitar is great. It's set up perfect. It's got great strings. It's got great pickups. It's got great everything. Just not me. I have one, in fact, I have one that I'm looking at right now behind the camera. Beautiful, black with the red stripes and red hardware, but it's got the bright whitish maple fretboard, and I hate it. Black markers, it looks awesome, but it's just not me. And it bothers me to play it. Sounds great, but when I look down and see that bright fretboard, I'm a dark fretboard guy. That bothers me. I don't remember the last time I played that guitar. Now, this all sounds stupid, I know. However, I can't get rid of that guitar. I will keep that guitar forever because it's a beautiful guitar. But I don't play it. It's just not warmed up to me, and I haven't warmed up to it. So you absolutely have to know your guitar. You absolutely have to warm up to your guitar. So sometimes I have to tell a client, has this guitar ever felt right to you? And if they say no, I say, okay, well, there's nothing wrong with this guitar. It plays great. It sounds great. Maybe it just isn't your type of guitar. Maybe it's time to look for something else. And that's hard sometimes if it's that Randy Rhoads V and they're like, this is what I've always wanted. I get it, but it didn't want you maybe. I don't know. I don't know how else to explain it to you. But it's a thing. As stupid as it sounds, it's a thing. So your relationship with your guitar is very important. Call me weird, whatever. I don't really care. Anyway, so that's another edition of Bench Talks. Thanks for joining us. We'll do another one of these soon. We got a couple more to do, I think, for this season 1 to get them all out of the way. We'll do them all, and then maybe we'll start on season 2. I don't know. They seem to be very popular, so I appreciate everybody for watching them, and I appreciate the clients that have come into the shop again and said, hey, I saw this, and I've downloaded the guide, and it's been helpful. Thank you very much, because that means a lot. I'm very much into getting this knowledge out there because, I mean, ultimately it makes my job easier when you come in here and know how to tell me what your guitar is doing. And it makes, as a guitar player, it makes things make more sense to you, and that makes me happy. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.